Hello guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. Welcome back to the channel. Part 16 now of this build of this lovely little kit, and I think this is going to be, if not the last one, the next but last. Probably the next but last, because we'll get it all painted in this video, and then we'll get it clear coated, and then we'll get the decals on, and then we'll start doing some weathering probably in the next part. So this video, hopefully we will see it finished, depending how things go. As you know, I like to make the videos about an hour long, and as you also know, I like to show you as much as I possibly can. I'm not one of these who goes, there you go, there it is green, there you are, it's weathered, bye. I don't do that. So, and if you find this boring, you can fast forward. So this is our colour we're going to go for. As you know, this is the SCC15 Olive Drab, which we're using, the AK Real colour. And first of all, I'm going to pre-shade with this colour here. I just picked up any old paint that I've got a couple of, XF76 grey green from the Imperial Japanese Navy. You can see it's a light green. And what I'm going to do is spray this. I'm going to fog it into the panel areas, like in here, around here, in there, down the sides. And I'm going to basically lighten up the middle of the panel so that when I spray it green, this just shows through, and we end up with and rather than just having a green finish, it will be an actually nice sort of, you know, distempered finish or whatever. So that's what we're going for now. You don't have to do this. As I say at the beginning, you know, this was going to be a total beginner's video, but it's sort of stretched out a bit further than that. You don't have to do this if you're brush painting, just paint it green, and then when we do the weathering you can tone it all down then if you want to, or you might just want a green brand new looking ambulance on your shelf, which is absolutely fine. It's your model. If you want to paint it pink with yellow stars and blue spots, then you carry on. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do it, because you can. So it's the same with this. People will say that's not accurate, it wouldn't have faded that way. It's artistic license. It's like nobody tells an artist that they can't use an oil in a certain way and, you know, the face shade is wrong or whatever. It's the same thing. It's artistic license to get the effect you want, to make the model look like more than just a plastic model painted green. So that's what we're doing. Right, so here we have the paint made up. It's the XF76. I'm sorry about my voice, guys. I'm going to struggle today, but I've got to get this done. So this is the XF76. It's about 80% thinner as 20% paint. So it's a very, very thin mix. And I'm just going to test it here on this rag. It's coming through fine. And what I want to do is, I want it very thin because I want to be able to build it up slowly and sort of fade it. I'll show you what I mean now. So I'm just going to blow that off. See that spatter there? That just had a barking fit. So that there, I'm glad that happened in a way, and I wish it hadn't happened. That is basically a problem. What happens is when you're airbrushing, okay, I've covered this before, what you should do is go down, pull back, go forward, go up, go down, pull back, go forward, go up. If you do what I always do by habit, which is this, go down, come back and let it go, you end up with paint left on the front of the nozzle, and when you spray next time it will blow that paint off, so you get that spattering. So it's a bad habit to get into. So if you can't get into that habit, the best thing to do is when you start spraying, just start the air off of the model and then come along, okay? So you come away like that. So what I'm going to do is just blow some paint in here. This is very spattery. What's going on here? Okay, so it just shows when you're not very well, you don't do things right. And I think I must have had that like 50-50 or something, because paint was way too thick. So let's try again. That's better. You can basically just blow the paint into that area and not pick up on any of the featured panels, so just stay away. Then what we can do is just come in here and just in the middle of that door there. There we go, just blow that in. Okay, so there you've got this sort of light green underneath the darker green, and when you see it you'll be amazed how good it looks. It does look really, really good in my opinion. So we'll get the roof done. So I'm just going to blow some in there and then move across to here. What we'll do is do the roof as 2 panels. So it has that ridge in the centre, staying away from the edges, staying away from any features, because that's what we want to stand out. There we are again, you can see the sort of thing I'm doing. So I'm going to go over the whole model now, do it off camera so I can get in the booth, and then I'll be back. Voila, there is the finished result. And as you can see, we've got all the fading done. So it's just like when you see people pre-shade an aircraft, if it's light grey plastic, they'll go over all the panel lines. It's just the same, just doing it backwards. So there we are. So all looking pretty good. Now that there, I'm not sure if that should be there or not. I'm not sure if that should be there or not. I don't think it should. I'm going to have to look back at my videos. Yes, it should be. I can see it there on the drawing. It's a little latch. So there we are. I've been trying to remove it, thinking it's a piece of dust or something. But basically, yeah, that's come out really nice, come out really smooth. As I say, the paint was thinned about 70–80% thinners after I did it properly, and it's gone down very, very smooth. That's what you want. And also, the thing is with that is when you spray it, you build it up. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 coats on there. Whereas if you do it too thick, you just go once and you end up with quite a hard edge. Whereas doing it this way, you end up with a very, very soft edge, and it's very, very nice. So we'll leave that now for a couple of hours to dry, because what's going to happen, the next coat of paint that goes on is going to sort of eat into that, and what you'll see is I'll paint it and then it will come through. And then you paint it again and it comes through, and you've got to just get it just right so that it's just showing through. But obviously you don't want your Katie to look like that. You know, that is just silly. So and if you're doing your Katie tan and you've primed it black, which is a great colour primer for tan, do this, but say use a very, very light tan or even a white colour, and that will get you the same effect. So right, let's leave that to dry, and then I'll come back and we'll get some green on it. Okay, so it's time to start looking at getting the let's get this camera straightened up a bit. It's time to start looking at getting the green down. So I've got my RCO 370 and my OK paints. Now I've got an empty jar here. These Tamiya jars, don't ever throw them away. I always wash them out with some alcohol or just hot water, and then stick them in a dishwasher, and it cleans them out beautifully. Same with the lids. Pull the little plastic cap out, and you can reuse them for mixing paints and stuff. I've got lots of paints here pre-mixed in my little jars. So very, very good. Now I could easily mix some paint up in here, and measure the weight and everything and get an exact sort of 60 or 70% thinners or whatever I want to do. But I'd rather do it in the airbrush. Reason being, if I do it in here, okay, I will mix up probably, I don't know, about 6mm of paint. 6mm, not milliliters. 6mm of paint, and I know that'll be enough. And then what I've got left over, I can pour back in there, which is fine. But there's going to be a load of paint left stuck to the side of this jar. So I would rather mix it in the airbrush. But I'm going to show you what happens when you mix it in a glass jar, because the trouble is I cannot show you a clean one. I cannot show you how I mix the paint. Now I don't use any weights, I don't use any droppers or anything like that. I just want about 70% thinners. Okay, so I'm going to put some thinners in there. Right, a little tiny drop more. The thing is, I can always pour it back in the jar, and the beauty of this exercise today is that this paint has gone quite thick. So it's in fact it's very thick. It needs thinning anyway. So what I don't use, I can put back in the jar. You can see how thick that is. It's really thick. So I mean, what I can do, I mean, if you want to do it by weight, quite easily. I'm not sure they're the same specific gravity. But I'll get an empty jar. Okay, so we get an empty Tamiya jar, and then we'll set our tare, so we've got 0. Okay, so now we've got 1.5 grams of paint. Okay, so if I want to mix that sort of 70-30, then say that's 15. Let me think about this, hang on. Yeah, so if I make it 2 grams or just over, that'll be about right. So if I just add some paint in here, 2.5, that's more than enough. So that should be a kind of nice consistency. Okay, so as I say, when people start talking like 70% and 50-50 and all that, don't worry about it. I have seen people talk to me about, you know, oh, I've got 1 drop too many, or how many drops, and this, that and the other, and blah 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 blah. Don't worry about it, just mix it to how you think it should be. Okay, so now I can give this a good stir, and I can see that when I pull this up the side of the glass, I'm going to try and show you on here. If I pull this up the side of the glass, you can see that it runs away, but there's some colour left behind, and that's what we want. Alright, you can see here, if I shake it around, the sort of consistency that is. If I pour it up the side, you can see it leaves some staining, and that is what I want. So give it a good stir. Of course, it always depends on the colour as well. If it was a white, I'd probably go a bit thicker. And the reason I'm going so thin, you may be thinking, oh, it's way too thin. The reason I'm going so thin is because I want my weathering to show through. So I've got the black to show through. Let's put this lid on. I've got the black to show through, and I've got the green colour to show through. So what I'm going to do is spray, I'll spray a bit of this. I'll do this front of the roof here so you can see what I'm talking about. So I've got the compressor set on about 18 psi. We'll just do a little test patch first. I think I need to get a new nozzle for this airbrush because it's playing up. See that spatter there? That's where I didn't do it properly. So I can show you once again that if I go like this and then let it go, next time I press that airbrush I'll get spatter. See? Like that. If I do it like this, okay, forward and off, next time I do it, no spatter. Okay, so there you go. Right, let's get this roof painted. So we're going to go very, very light, and I'm going to go in a circular motion just to kind of build up some colour. And then I'm going to go to the booth. Do you know what? I think this needs thinning some more. For some reason I've got bubbles coming back. I've got a blockage in the airbrush, I think. Oh, that was the thing, the nozzle was loose. So we can lay this paint down. Just like so, and we will see just go straight across like that. So you can see on there, hopefully, excuse me, you can see on there, hopefully, we've got the lighter colour showing through. In fact, it's way more pronounced on the camera than it is in real life. So that's basically what we're going for. I'm going to add a drop more thinners to that because I think that's a little bit too thick. I would rather it covered a little more slowly. But what you'll see is as the paint dries, this colour will bleed its way through because the solvents will attack this and pull it through the dark green. But you can see on there, as I say, the camera is making it much more emphasised than it really is. You can see on there that we have actually got, you know, all these different colours going on. Now this area here needs a bit more painting, so I'm going to put some more paint in there and up there and go across this front here. So this AK paint covers extremely well, so I'm going to have to thin it some more, I think. But we can see on there, you can see now that the difference is a lot more subtle, and that's what I'm after, is this very, very subtle look. I can hardly see that in the flesh, and that's what I'm after. I don't want it to be garish. I just want it something there rather than just having all one colour green. So I'm going to cut to air and dry it off. We should see that we get a lovely looking shaded area. You can see there the shading on there. Okay, so I'm going to spray the rest of it in the booth so I don't kill myself, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. There we go, all done. So still wet on that side, this side's pretty much dry. So you can see there, hopefully you can see the light green showing through the darker green. As I say, it's a lot more garish on the camera than it is in real life. But yeah, it's just, I just wanted to get that sort of broken up effect rather than just have this monotone green. So I'm really happy with how that's come out. I'll leave that to dry for a couple of hours, and then we'll be able to pick it up and touch it and everything. But you can see on the bonnet we've got the same sort of effect. It's almost like pre-shading an aircraft. Okay, in fact I'm going to blow a little bit more over that front bumper, because that front bumper does look a little too dark to me. So we'll just grab a tiny bit of paint left in the airbrush. Drop more on there, there we go. So there we are. And then I have a little tiny drop of paint left, but you can see what I mean about when you mix it in jars, you get all that paint around the side of the jar that you've basically wasted. You're just going to wash that out and throw it down the drain. It's also not, it's just wasteful and probably not good for the environment either. But we can get that out, we can put that in there. There we are, job done. Wipe the spill off, and then we've got our AK paint for another day. And you know, and we've wasted all of that paint that's in there. So if you're doing something like this, it's fine. If you're doing a great big car body or something, then fine. But if you're just mixing a little bit of paint to do a cockpit or something, I wouldn't bother. Just mix it in the airbrush. Okay, so that's had half an hour or whatever now. So nice and smooth, looking good. Really happy with how that's come out. So there we go. And just to say before I let this dry properly, I think some of you are going to be thinking, oh yeah, you've done all that, but when you put the decals on, because they're huge, because you can see, let's get the box front, squeaky chair, see the box front, you can see the decals are absolutely huge. You know, what about them? I'm going to fade them as well, and we're going to show you how to do that. So what we'll do is we'll put the decals on, and then we'll fade them so they match in with the fading we've got here. So we'll have a dark line running through and a lighter line in the middle. And we'll do the same on the sides here, because they are basically part of, I think this is all canvas on the back, they're going to be part of that, and they would fade the same and get chipped and dirty and everything. So always put your decals on before you do any weathering, because if you're going to put like a, you know, say you're going to have where something's dropped on here and it's all running down the side, it wouldn't run down the side, avoid the decal and go down, it would just run through it. So remember that when you're doing that, especially with your aircraft and stuff. So there we are. Happy with how that looks. I think it looks bloody great. Bloody lovely. So happy with that. So we'll let that dry, and then I think what I'm going to have to do is give it a clear coat, because it's so much decals I don't want to risk any silvering. So I'm going to give it a clear coat. I'll probably use aqua gloss, and then just basically we'll be good to go. So I won't need to do the, I need to do the whole thing really, because we've got numbers down here, we've got symbols on the wings, we've got a red cross there, a red cross there, a red cross there, there on the doors. I don't need to do the underneath, but I think we'll give the sides a clear coat, and then we'll give it a matte coat afterwards. So I'll see you back when I've done that. So a few hours later now, and we're all dry. I've left this about 6 hours to dry. You need to be a little bit careful if you're using aqua gloss. Oh, sorry, I didn't show you, did I? I've sprayed the model with aqua gloss. This is it here. Alclad 2 aqua gloss ALC 600. Absolutely brilliant stuff. You don't have to get it from Hero Boy, but he does stock it. You don't shake it. You just put it in the airbrush, spray it. Do not shake it. No stirring, no nothing. It's absolutely brilliant. Goes down really well, and as you can see, gives a fairly glossy finish. I don't want a massively glossy finish. I just want to see all the matte painting. The little bits you can see that are dull is where I've rubbed down where I had bits of dust or whatever in the paint. That's all that is. I should have been more careful before I painted it. I didn't wipe it off or anything. I just went straight in, and I think some of the dust was actually in the actual spray booth. So that's that done. So now we're going to put the decals on. Now I've decided to go for this scheme here, which is the 30 Corps Motor Ambulance Convoy Royal Arms Service Corps Northwest Europe 1944. And the reason I decided to go for this one is because it's green. I like it a lot, and it's got the little Allied star on the bonnet, so it's like, you know, a little bit more colour to add to it. The other option in the green is this one here, which is the Territorial Service. So I thought, well, I'll go for this one because it's got that star on it. So there we are. So you might be wondering, why hasn't he painted these bits here yet? I'll do all that when I've got the matte coat on, or after it's weathered and everything, or after it's, well, before we start the weathering. I'll do some detail painting and then we'll do the weathering. Now you can see here I've got the rear doors taped together because I want to make sure they're parallel, okay, and shut up against each other, because we're going to be putting these two crosses on here, and I want to make sure they're even and centered and everything. So I've got a straight edge here ready to put across the cross to make sure they're level and everything. So I'm going to put these down, and then I'm going to, before I start pushing them down or anything, I'm just going to lay them down, get them all level, and then start to roll them down. So what we need, I will get myself a clean piece of paper towel, which is something I haven't prepared with. So a nice clean piece of paper towel. Okay, so that's that there. And then we've got some cotton buds to roll it out. I've got a brush here to apply, and I've got some micro set and micro sol setting solutions. These are my go-to. They always go back to these no matter what I try. They're bloody brilliant. I've got a nice pair of scissors here which are dedicated only to doing decals. Now I will give you a little tip when it comes to decals. I think I've mentioned this before in this build. Always use scissors to cut your decals out, especially if you're going right up to the edge, because when you use scissors it makes a slice. If you use a knife it tends to raise like a ploughed field. So on the door, so you can see we've got number 10 and number 10, and the number 10s are here. So there's one there and one there. You can see we've got the 10 underneath. So what I'm going to do is just cut these out. Now because these decals, you can see when you look at them, in the light, you can see, if you concentrate on this one here, you can see it has an edge on it. Okay, so that means that one decal, if I put these in a bath of water, they would all come off separately. Some older kits and some short run kits and stuff, the decals was just produced as one sheet, so you have to cut them out very, very carefully. But these you don't have to. You can just sort of stay away from the decal, obviously stay away from your other decals, and just cut them out as neat as you can. This is why we use small scissors, so that we can get in and make the cuts without sort of distorting the whole sheet. Okay, so we go around there like that. So we cut that one out of there, put the decal sheet over there. I always cut these little numbers off because sometimes they will come off. In fact, I'm going to cut that out of there. They will come off in your water bath and float around, and if they get underneath your white bit here, they will look horrible. So what we do is we're going to cut that one off, put that one there. So we've got our decals there. So I've got a little pot of water, it's just barely warm. I'm just going to dip that in there just for a couple of seconds, and then take it out and place it down. And I'm going to do the same with the other one, because I want to apply them both at the same time so I can level them out and square them up and everything. So just get them like that. And it'll be interesting to see with these actually how well they cover this dark green paint, because the white sometimes doesn't. So we just leave them there for a few seconds. I'm going to get the lids off my microset and sol, place them in there. I'm sorry about the coughing, guys, I can't help it. Okay, so you can see that now, it's been in the water and it's ready to slide. There's a million videos on YouTube regarding decaling and stuff. I'm just going to put some microset on there, and I hope I don't regret it. Now this is basically going on so that we can see the top of the cross is just above the door handle. So I'm going to try and get it as square as I can, as centered as I can, and then just hold it down and slide the paper across, and then I'm not going to touch it. And I'm going to put another little drop of microset on this side, and this just helps the decal to pull down. And I'm going to put this one as level as I can with that one. There we go. And I'm not going to press it down. Now I'm going to use a rule here. This is very difficult for me to do because I can't see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to pull these around a bit so that I can get them See, I'm not pushing. If I push them down, they will stick down, and I don't want them to stick down. I want them to stay in between the framework with that bit just over the door handle, and I want them level and square. So I'm going to use my rule to look at them and check that they are level and square. Now I can see that this one is a little bit lower than that one. That side needs to go up. There we go. I think that's good enough. So we're just going to take a cotton bud and lightly roll the cotton bud over the surface. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm just gently rolling it over the surface like it's the wheel on the end of an axle. Just rolling it over, and that will squeeze out any water or anything that's under there, and it will help the decal to get itself into position. Okay. Once we've got it starting to bite, then we can start to smooth it out. It kind of looks like the decal's shrinking from the inside out. It's kind of pulling the outer edges up, which is a bit weird. But it'll go down in the end, it'll be absolutely fine. Just going to check before we do anything final. You can see the air coming out of there. What you can do is apply a little heat if you want to, make them go down a bit better. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's necessary with these. We haven't got anything that difficult to get around. And just before we push them down finally, I'm just going to check. And we can see that that one on the right has moved up a touch. So I'm just going to pull that bottom down. I just want to see if I can still move it around. There we go, I think that's good enough. I mean, to the end of the day, they probably weren't perfect in reality anyway. But what they may have done is just got tape and taped across the doors and painted them so they would have been dead straight. Who knows? But they certainly didn't have air-fix decals in the Second World War. So now I've got my paper towel. I can just push down with the paper towel. Just push that down. I'm being careful not to push too hard around that handle, because what happens is the decal will just crack. I don't want that to happen. Okay, so they've gone down now. I can see I've got some bubbles under there, so I'm just going to roll those out, just like so. And there we go. As I say, not pushing too hard over that handle because I don't want it all to split. I'm hoping that the micro set and sole will make that decal pull down into that hole. So there you can see we have our decals in place on our rear doors. Now I can see I've got a bit of a crease going on there, so I need to get that out. So just rolling the cotton bud over, and then I'm going to take some micro sole. Just wipe my fingers off on the brush. What you do then is you put more micro set over the top. So we just brush some micro set on there like that. Same on the other one. And just let it dry. And then once that's dry, we'll put some micro sole on there and everything should pull down nicely. We can see we've got them nice and level, happy with how they've come out, pretty well centered on those doors. If anything, that one on the right looks slightly higher than the one on the left, but I'm not going to worry about it because when the doors are open it's not going to show, but when the doors are closed it would. So there we go. So We'll let that dry out and then we'll put some micro sole on there. So I'll get another couple of decals cut out and then we'll look at applying a couple more, and then I'll just get it done off camera. Okay, so I've just brushed some micro sole over these, and what happens sometimes when you brush the micro sole on, they will wrinkle up. That's okay, just leave them, they will settle themselves down. But as you can see on here, if I can catch it on the camera lens, you can see it's all starting to conform around that door handle. And if I keep at it, if I keep applying it, in the end it will pull itself in and completely conform around that door handle. If it doesn't, I'll cut it, push it in, touch it up with some paint. We're going to have to do some scratching and chipping around that handle anyway, because the paint would have been scratched off. But we'll just leave those now to dry. Put our brush to one side. So what we'll do, we'll put this, where is it? Where's the alloyed star? There we go. We'll put this alloyed star on the bonnet. So that's going to fit on there. We're just checking that it is actually going to fit. Yes, so we'll put it in the water and then just put it down there for a few seconds. Grab some micro set. Just put a drop of micro set on the bonnet. Let that sit there. And then when that's ready to go, we can slide that into place, and we can see that we have the star is actually pointing into the cab with its legs open at the bottom, pointing forward. So once that's ready to go, we can slide that on. There we go, that's ready to go. So we can slide that on, have the point pointing inwards, just lay that down like that. And as you can see, I need to slide it over. So to slide it over, I could use my finger. It's a good idea to wet your finger so the decal doesn't stick to it. I need to slide the top over. It also needs to be moved back slightly. So we've got that ridge on the centre of the bonnet, which is perfect for lining it up, which is really good. Just bring it over this way a touch. And then with a cotton bud, just very lightly go over that ridge and see how well centred it is. Just want to pull it over slightly on the top. And there you can see we've got that on. You can see that one there, and then what we can do is just come along. I think I need to move it over slightly if I can. So what we'll do is we'll get some water on the brush, brush all around the decal. Hopefully the water will capillary underneath. We should be able to slide it over a touch with a finger. As I say, it's best to make sure your finger's slightly wet, because sometimes it'll be a little bit sticky from the glue of the decals or whatever, and you'll go and it'll just rip it off. So you've got to be a little bit careful. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. There we go. So we can roll that out now. Roll that down. Make sure we get all the water out from behind it. Just like so. And if you're wondering why I did the gloss coat, the reason being, there is one of the biggest problems with decaling is a thing called silvering. And what happens when you've got a decal like this, you can see that this star all around it is clear carrier film, and if you have matte paint under there, which is slightly rough or slightly stipply, you can end up with what's called silvering, and instead of looking matte, it looks like silver paint, and it looks awful. Sorry, I'm doing it again. I keep forgetting the second application of microset. So put microset on there, and then just let that dry, and then once that's dried, we'll put some microsol on it. So I'm going to go on and put some more on, and then I'll come back and show you how it all looks when it's done. And as if by magic, there we go, all done. So what I'm going to do now is let that all dry. Remember I said about decals wrinkling up? You can see down on there, down on the bottom, that's just started to wrinkle up. Now you could just leave it. What I'm going to do is just roll it out just to make sure. But sometimes they will wrinkle up It's not an issue, don't worry about it. This one here, make sure that it fits perfectly around those two raised grills in the roof, whatever they are. But basically we're going to have to paint those red, because as you can see on the instructions, it's telling us to paint them 60, which is the matte scarlet. I'm going to use XF7 and then blend it all in. I may end up having to mask the actual cross itself and then spray the whole cross, because maybe the XF7 won't match, I don't know. But I'll probably paint them white first, otherwise it's going to be very difficult to get it to brighten up. The other thing I want to do is give the model another gloss coat to seal the decals in. And the reason we do that is because obviously on the edge of the decals you have the film. So this decal here, every single one of them has an edge on it. It's basically like a very thin sticker, if you like. So if you think about it, if we start coming on now with oils and pigments and stuff and doing washes on it, what's going to happen is the wash will collect around the edge of the decal, which won't look very accurate. So what I'll do is give it another gloss coat, okay? And I use a gloss coat because it goes down thicker than a matte coat, and that's what's called sealing them in. And we will basically seal the decals in, and then when we want to weather it, if you want to put washes on and be able to wipe most of it away, you leave the gloss coat. If you want the oils to actually stain the surface like they did around the interior, if you remember, you do a matte coat. So basically what we're going to do is give this a gloss coat, perhaps give it a little wash, then wipe it away, and then we'll give it a matte coat and do the weathering on top of that. But basically I want to seal these decals in so that, you know, rather than having, you know, imagine my hand is the model. If you've got a decal on there, it's going to be like that, and then you've got an edge where my finger is, where the oils will settle. So we seal them in, so you end up with like blending it in. So there we go. So we're going to let those dry for overnight now. I mean, it's night time for me. I'll let those dry overnight, and I'll give the model a clear coat, and then I'm going to come back in part 17 and we are going to do weathering. So what I will do is I will come back when it's clear coated. I'll get all the masking removed after I've taken the clear coat off, and then we're going to come back and we are going to get this all weathered up, and we'll stick the wheels on and everything and go from there. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all very soon for part 17, is it? And that's that. So just to give you a quick look, there we go. Look around the side, look around the front. You can see we got all the emblems on there and everything. There's no it's funny, there's no number plate to go on. It's just the army registration. So we've got those, one on the bonnet, one on each side of the bonnet, and then we've got the one across the back door there. And you can see here how that setting solution is making that decal go down into that door handle. It's very, very clever. So just brush some more on there and let that dry. So I'll see you all soon for part 17. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.